Hey, I want to invite you to listen in on a weekly call I did with my Urban Monk Academy students on analysis paralysis. It's just so hard to make decisions nowadays. My students were challenged with this. And so we spent a full half hour talking about it. And I jump in and I answer questions and we get into it because no, it's not easy. It's hard to know what path to take. It's also hard to know how to stay on a path and know that it's working for you. So if you enjoy this, I invite you to join the room. It's in the Urban Monk Academy. We have conversations every single week. You're the missing ingredient. We'll see you in there. Today, we are talking about analysis paralysis. A lot of people have complained about being stuck, right? And the quintessential timely joke about this is spending more time trying to choose a movie on Netflix than actually watching a movie on Netflix. We have that with diets. We have that with workouts. We have that with everything now. And analysis paralysis has become a way of life and not a healthy way of life. And so I want to talk to this because some of it has to do with what we talked about in the last week or so. Is some of it has to do with just recognizing the pattern and pushing through it. So I want to talk about some pragmatic ways of punching through analysis paralysis without going all in on a bad hand, right? Just because you're tired of sitting at the poker table doesn't mean you have to leave without chips. Don't make hasty decisions, make good decisions. And if you can't make the decision, then let's talk about how to either punt on the decision or make a micro decision. So just high level, I'm going to go through my notes real quick, and then I will open up to some of the things that y'all have complained about. Is the definition is basically a state of overanalyzing situations to the point where no action is taken, right? The obvious signs are you continue to research without implementing. You want one more piece of information, just a little more here, a little more there, and you can't make the decisions, even the small decisions. Okay. A lot of the point of origin of this ends up being fear of failure. We talked about this a lot with Elliot Rowe and the Vitality Summit, and a lot of people just self-sabotage because they don't want to fail. They don't want to look like they failed. It's easier to say I didn't give it my all. But fear of failure also has a lot to do with making the wrong choices. Remember that one time I made a really bad choice. I never want to feel that way again. So now I'm just not going to make a choice, right? Another major issue around this is there's just so many options. It used to be your spouse said this, grandma said this, and the Bible said that. There you go. Now make your choice, right? Like those were the information sources that you had available to you in that village. And now it's the global village, it's the phone, it's all of the stuff. And we'll talk about that because the information overload began with the Encyclopedia Britannica, and now it's dizzying the pace at which the information is coming at us. So we got to be careful, right? And one of the other reasons that comes up a lot is a lot of folks are actually OCD perfectionists, and they're masquerading that as thoroughness. And obsessive compulsive disorder, if you look it up in the DSM-5, is a very common anxiety disorder. And so we have anxiety about Ukraine. We have anxiety about Israel. We have anxiety about election. We have an anxiety about our kids' college exams. And it powers, if we have a tendency towards perfectionism and obsessive compulsive behavior, that anxiety will start to power that and make us more likely to get stuck on a decision because it's the anxiety, it's not the actual thoroughness that's keeping us there. Okay. So there's obviously a couple major paradoxes. We've talked about this in the last few weeks. I want to make sure that I double click on this one, which is more resources oftentimes leads to more confusion. Another paradox that is the obvious one we've talked about, and I'm circling back, is there's just too many experts, too many MCs, not enough mics. There are way too many self-proclaimed experts. And so these are the people being trained by the internet marketers to go out and pretend to be health experts. Now, that said, there are incredible doctors, professors, health experts, gurus out there that are worth listening to. But I'm just saying their voices are getting drowned out by these monkeys who are masquerading as authorities or experts. You gotta be careful. You gotta be really careful. Another one, obviously, is the opportunity cost. If I do this, then I can't do that. If I sign up for yoga, then I can't do Qigong. If I do baseball, then I can't do basketball. And so that opportunity cost and what the future holds is a very difficult decision for a lot of people. And that leads to analysis paralysis, right? The real hidden costs, Time lost, obvious. Mental energy, depletion, right, of that mental energy, missed opportunities. Every time you make a bad move, it reduces your confidence in yourself. And you think maybe you're going to screw it up again next time, which then also leads to some of the analysis paralysis and the anxiety buildup. That's the devil we know. How do we address this? How do we fix this? I would say first, coming out of the gate, one of the more effective strategies, if you are guilty of this, right? Now, I'm not suggesting don't weigh out your options. We took 3 months to choose a karate studio for my kids because once you commit to it, it's really hard to go, oh, just going to jump over here now. It sucks. So we did our research, but we were thorough in the research. And then I put a deadline on it. I said, look, we have 2 weeks. What else do you guys need to know? What do we need to decide? I've vetted these 3 studios. I've vetted 7 studios. These 3 are all good. Now, what do pros and cons? And so setting a deadline really helps. Now, I wouldn't call a karate studio a big life decision, but it is because that's realistically the next 6 years of my kids' lives. That's a lot of time on a bad decision. So what about small decisions? Should we get tacos or shawarmas? 2-minute rule. Figure it out, dude. If it's a small enough decision, I think the 2-minute rule really helps. And I think that the good enough rule and the 2-minute rule together go a long way. You're never going to make a perfect decision because the nature of the infinite universe means that there are more variables that you have inevitably not considered. So get as close as you can and make a decision that you can live with and move on, right? One of the other things is reversible versus irreversible. Even with this, and I guess I'm a pain in the ass around here because after 3 months of doing all this vetting and finally saying, okay, this is the studio, the guys like sign up here. I signed up for monthly. I'm not doing an annual commitment until after all the promises and all the everything, we show up and it is what we assumed it was going to be. So incremental, reversible decisions versus Lord knows how much that guy wanted for annual for the whole family. And it makes sense once we know we're happy. And this is where I'm actually surprised that this book didn't win, but you all saw the winner. It was The Experience Machine by 1 vote. It was a dead heat with Extreme Ownership. But the next book is Extreme Experience Machine. And then I'm guessing we should do Extreme Ownership immediately after that because there's so many people that voted for it. But I was for sure thinking it was going to be Mindset by Carol Dweck. The thing about small experimental steps is that you shift from saying, oh no, don't make a bad decision. You're going to be a loser. They're all going to see you fail. You're going to do it again. Oh my God, my wife's going to nag at me for a year if I make a bad decision here. All the stuff that like runs through our mental history that leads to the anxiety of yesteryear is based on who I am is predicated on being right and not making decisions. Who I am is a work in progress, folks. So if you can look at your decisions as experiments instead of permanent choices, then you can learn to iterate and be quick on your feet and say, oh yeah, we tried that, but you know what we didn't account for was the traffic on Wednesday nights. What we didn't account for is this is the wrong season to be playing baseball outside. I don't know. You can move with iterative grace and still move things forward with micro decisions and understand that, look, yes, action creates some clarity, but it's also like the fog of war. Like I can't really see what's on the other side of that turn. So I'm going to take 3 steps and look around the corner. And if there isn't like a herd of elephants charging, maybe I'll just keep walking down that corner and continue with my decision. Right. But I can poke my head around that corner and that might be part of it. Right. Another thing that I think I've had a lot of patients get stuck on this. And I just think it's mean parents and angry nuns or something, right? Like just the way we're brought up and getting reprimanded for making mistakes, which is an old, antiquated form of learning, which is not how they're teaching it in the schools anymore, is we get frozen because we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to be ridiculed. We don't want to be the person that gets called out, like went out on the limb. But not deciding is also a decision. So for me, I value the learning that comes from action 100 times more
than theoretical knowledge. We used to do this all the time, like in these like Chinese arts. They'd be like, oh, this is the most amazing defense against a wrist grab. You're like, all right, let's try it. I can't get out of your wrist grab. What else do you got? You know what? Talk is cheap. This is the most amazing block against this or that. I just got punched in the jaw. That block sucked. How about we try something new? So what I like for this is a decision-making matrix and have you first say, look, is this a big decision or a small decision? And part of the literature points to what's called the 5-10-10 rule on this, which is just look at this real quick. Just write 5-10-10 and think to yourself, how will this matter in 5 minutes, in 10 months, and then in 10 years? And if the decision is taco versus shawarma, move on, right? Come on. If the decision, like that puts things into perspective a little bit, right? But there are decisions that are 10-year decisions. My kid's karate is effectively a life decision because now they're like going down this one Chinese path. They could have gone down the Korean path. Oh my God, who's right? And so, yeah, you can weigh it out a little bit more. But I still think for micro decisions and macro decisions, setting a timer is good. And also setting a limitation on sources is good. Don't get your life-making decision information from TikTok. Do not, like, I cannot tell you how distorted truth and reality have become on the social media channels to the extent where there are deep fakes of everything saying anything someone wants you to hear. It's not even true. So start limiting, and I'm not saying like Wikipedia is the Lord, right? Wherever, find your truth of information, make sure it's validated by third parties, and make sure that you are looking at a balanced view of whatever it is that you're looking at instead of something someone wants you to believe, pure and simple, because there's too much of that now. And then what I'd like to do with this is everyone right now, you wrote down 5-10-10, right? Just keep that in mind. 5 minutes, 10 months, 10 years. I want you all to write down one decision that you've been postponing. Remember that perfect is the enemy of good. And I'd like for you to commit to taking action within 24 hours. Can you do it? Now, that action might be, wow, I better crack a book and do a bunch more research. I better make some calls. I better initiate I'm not saying make a decision in 24 hours. I'm saying take action in 24 hours. Those are very different things. If I come back on this next week's call and 3 of you filed for divorce, I'm going to be like, damn, sorry. Pump the brakes. Just take action and start to figure out what is going to move you in the appropriate direction for a decision. Don't make a hasty decision, but what is it going to come to make a decision? And what I'd like you to meditate on is, what is it about this thing that has me stuck? Because that's where the real lesson is there is an energetic quality, a psycho-emotional something that has pegged this thing between you and the other side of it. And typically what that is telling me is, hey, look here. If something's standing between me and my goal, between me and my future, between me and my sleep, looking away usually isn't the remedy, right? So the question is, what is this thing? Why is it between me and this resolution? And what do I need to do to take action in the next 24 hours? It might mean having a difficult conversation with a spouse. It might mean a lot of things. And again, I'm not suggesting smashing vases and tearing your life apart. I'm suggesting taking action in a way that has meaningful progress for you on this one thing. All right. Thank you. Have a lovely week. I will see you next week. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that. This kind of conversation we have every single week in the Urban Monk Academy. It's me, my students, raw, authentic. Let's get after it. Let's solve problems together. Because look, life is hard. And without a community, it's very hard to make decisions and know that you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're going the right direction. All of it. I invite you to join the Academy. We'll see you in there.